For my final project for CUL 233, I interviewed Melissa Novak. She is the sous chef at Shoko, one of Rick Bayless's three restaurants located over on North Clark Street. Shoko is a QSR, quick service restaurant. They focus mostly on takeout, while the more popular Frontera and Topolo are finer dining, sit-down restaurants. She's been working there for about 2 years, but she's been in the industry for the last 10. She manages a team of over 30 line cooks on a daily basis, and struggles with the same things that any manager does in any industry. She says one of her biggest challenges is maintaining a sense of cohesiveness. The restaurant gets insanely busy, lines out the door, even for breakfast. And it's really a lot to deal with. But she says over the last couple of years, she's really grown to learn how to manage her staff, make them come together as a team, and they've really become a part of her family. She says. When I asked her how her management views have changed over time, she said, since the company's grown so fast, that she really didn't have much time to focus on little nitpicky things. She had really kind of broad strokes changes that she had to make. Her learning curve was extremely steep due to the fact that this was her first managerial experience, and to start at a restaurant like Shoko it's a real feat. She jokes that when she was a prep cook, it was a lot easier to point out what things could be different from the perspective of a line cook than actually being a manager and having to make good on those promises, actually implementing change. That changes in such a busy restaurant they take time. And one of the things that she's very thankful for was the fact that both Frontera and Topolo had their own set of rules and regulations, employee handbook, applications, HR, all that sort of stuff was already in place when she started working there. So she didn't have to start from the ground up. She said she probably couldn't have handled it if it had been any other way. But being able to ease herself into it, she's really grown to love her job there at Shoko. I asked her about her hiring process and where they get most of their employees from. She says culinary schools from across the country, including the CIA in New York and LA, Kendall, a whole bunch of different culinary schools, send stages, interns to all three of the restaurants, and they're never short on extra help. She says that interns are the lifeblood of the restaurant. It's actually where I did my internship, and it was an amazing experience. I worked more than I've ever worked in my life, but it was definitely worth it. The hiring process, an interviewee comes in. If they're chosen, they get a 30-day unofficial trial period, and they determine whether or not they're a good fit after that. They really like to hire from within their ranks. Somebody who starts as a prep cook, turns into a line cook, turns into a sous chef, eventually turns into a chef. A lot of the cooks have been there for 20 plus years since Frontera opened its doors back in I think it was 1987 or something like that. So it's they've had some serious seniority, and they're very set in their ways, just like any chef should be that has been there for that long. They use a lot of interesting methods to keep their employees around. They take trips down to Mexico every year. They take 2 trips, one in the spring and one in the fall. A lottery system is used to determine which of the chefs which of the cooks and line cooks get to go down and check out classical Mexican techniques. All expenses are paid by Bayless and the restaurant, and it's a big deal. It's a big deal there in the restaurant. They also do 2 parties, one in the summer and one in the winter, held at Chef Bayless's house. Fully catered, music, the whole 9 yards. I actually got to attend one the last day of my internship, and it was really, it was a lot of fun. It was a great bonding experience. We all got to have beer and talk about stuff other than work, and it was a really good way to be able to learn what the cooks were all about outside of just being behind a grill and talking about business. Next, we talked about what mistakes probably she could have avoided. One of her biggest problems was that she didn't spend enough time talking with the Topolo and Frontera managers before she took on Shoko. She focused more on learning the food, learning how they cook, all that sort of stuff. But she didn't take the time to really learn how they manage the restaurant and how it all came together as one unit. She wishes that she could have spent more time doing that. It was very overwhelming when she first started. Next, we talked about a conflict resolution, which is, of course, an issue in kitchens just because of the cutthroat nature of the industry. I mean, it's tempers are high and temperatures are hot and people get frustrated and mistakes happen, and so being a conflict negotiator is a vital part of being a manager. She has 3 steps. First, she tries to determine both sides of the story, listens to both parties, and tries to figure out what happened. Next, she determines what went wrong without assigning blame. She doesn't like to point fingers, which is obviously a good idea when you're dealing with conflict. I mean, you can't blame one person, even if it is pretty obviously one person's fault. I mean, it obviously stemmed from something, and you need to investigate that as a sous chef. Third, you look towards the future and try to figure out how you can avoid that, avoid whatever conflict has happened. That's probably the most important of the 3 steps. Just because if a problem keeps happening, the time, the money, the all the factors that go into conflict resolution, are completely useless if it keeps happening over and over again. Finally, we talked about turnover rate and how long some of the members of her staff have been there. While she's only been there a couple of years, some of the staff has been there for, as I said, 20 plus years, and she attributes that to the fact that the restaurant takes such good care of its employees. The rewards and parties and trips and all that sort of stuff that I spoke about before. By giving that little bit, they're compensated with a very loyal work staff, and which is definitely worth the extra little bit of money to take a trip down there, and they bring back a lot of authentic Mexican spices and all that sort of stuff that are used in the restaurant, that really give authenticity to the whole place. The last thing I asked her was what tips she can give to an aspiring manager. Her biggest suggestion is to be as understanding as possible, especially with new employees. Any workplace can be stressful, but kitchens are exceptionally so. Mistakes are going to happen, and if you blow up someone's face, they don't come back the next day. It's on you, and you'll have to pick up the slack. Nothing good comes from being a horse's ass. Excuse my French, but it's really important to try to understand where other people are coming from, and speak with them and treat them with a respect that you would like to be treated with. So that concludes my CUL 233 final project. Thank you for watching. Have a nice night.